Hey guys, Niffler here and welcome to my channel featuring today the Poisoncyclone Assassin build. The fated unique Iron Ring, Voidheart, was by far the strongest unique added in Prophecy and therefore got immediately nerfed in Atlas of Worlds. But even after GGG has dropped the nerf hammer, Voidheart still remains top tier. Sacrificing only a ring slot, every melee build can add a chance to poison and bleed on hit, substantially increasing its DPS. You might have tried this on your average Earthquake RT build and of course pretty nice free deeps. But with this build we wanna exploit this ring to a whole new level and the results can be seen in the background. Especially versus high HP bosses, the true potential of this Cyclone assassin can be witnessed. The classic downside of assassins on the right side of the passive tree is the low amount of available life nodes. That's why we're aiming for Energy Shield instead, with Chaos Inoculation. Not only to increase our life pool, but this is also allowing us to use melee damage on full life to further scale our DPS. CI's vulnerability to stun also won't affect his character, utilizing Cyclone, providing stun immunity. In order to maximize the poison and bleed, we are scaling purely physical damage. Instead of converting fist to cold damage with hatred, we are running a blasphemy setup with vulnerability, which is double dipping, increasing the initial physical hit plus increasing the damage over time. As already mentioned, CI allows us to add melee damage on full life to the standard melee physical damage, which is altogether amplified again by the critical strike multiplier from the assassin. Last but not least, the assassin's ascendancy node, Toxic Delivery, adds an additional 100% more damage multiplier for poison and bleed afflicted by critical strikes. With our 95% crit chance, it's basically every strike. Our main skill setup is now no surprise. Cyclone, melee physical damage, melee damage on full life, increased critical strikes, faster attacks and increased area of effect. For fast movement, a 3-linked Whirling Blades faster attacks fortify is used, and for cliffs add a leap slam to the setup. Auras and buffs in use are standard discipline for simply more energy shield, and the already mentioned Blasphemy vulnerability setup. Then we got Wall Haste and Ancestral Protector, linked with increased duration, boosting our attack speed during boss fights. The last remaining sockets are used for the classic Cosmic Damage Taken, Immortal Call and increased duration. Before we get to the gear section, let's take a quick look at the passive tree. We start off at the Shadow with the physical Chaos hybrid nodes and fill out all crit and ES clusters. As for any energy shield based character, we grab the standard CI, Ghost Reaver and Volpack keynotes, enabling the classic Leech Tank playstyle. And from there, more ES and increased area of effect from the Witch area, traveling through the Ranger start in order to get to the Dual Wield and Sword crit clusters down here. Vitality Void is providing the Leech, while Dirty Techniques enhances our chance to poison. And with the Assassin's 100% more multiplier on damage over time effects, these increases are twice effective. Lastly, we grab the Duelist's Art of the Gladiator and Master of the Arena, which are both very important for the Cyclone playstyle. Increasing the movement speed and especially adding +2 to the weapon range will benefit Cyclone's AoE by a lot. For the same reason, I highly recommend the unique jewel Warlord's Reach, adding an additional +1 range. In terms of ascendancy nodes, we grab Unstable Infusion, providing power charge generation, Deadly Infusion, boosting your crit chance to 95% with the 6 power charges, Noxious Strike, capping our poison chance to 100% against bleeding enemies and crippling them with Maim, and lastly Toxic Delivery, as already mentioned, for the 100% more damage over time from critical strikes. For bandits, Kill All in Normal and Cruel, for +2 passive points, which are very valuable in this build. And finally, help Alira and Merciless for your 6th power charge. When you take a closer look to this passive tree, it's actually very similar to Blade Vortex, which should be used for leveling, before you pick up CI and have the budget to get started with Cyclone. Gear-wise, there's actually just one core unique, and that's the Voidheart Iron Ring of course, providing up to 50% chance to bleed and up to 40% chance to poison on melee attack. Important to note is that for this build, you should aim for a close to 50% chance to bleed, because once a target is bleeding, you gain an additional 65% chance to poison from your passives. With a 35% poison roll on your Voidheart, you're back to the pre-nerf 100%. Other uniques I recommend for this build are actually only jewels. Warlord's Reach was already mentioned for its +1 range, and Energy from Within is also a must-have, which goes right here in order to convert this cluster to full ES. Very nice for dual-wield CI char lacking the shield slot. My weapons of choice are 2 thrusting swords, ideally with high physical DPS, critical strike chance and multiplier. Thrusting swords have the highest base weapon range of 7, resulting in the best AoE coverage possible with Cyclone. In addition, they also offer the highest potential DPS, with their implicit critical strike multiplier. A real endgame goal would be finding a sword with an open suffix, allowing you to mastercraft an additional +2 weapon range with Vagan. One sword is enough, as dual-wield Cyclone will always use the highest weapon range for all its attacks. As rare physical crit swords can be quite expensive, the unique Skiva Gladius offers a cheap starter alternative. Just dual-wield those until you acquire the funds for an upgrade. The rare gear parts are the standard Hubris Circlet, Val Regalia, Sorcerer Gloves and boots with as high ES and resists as possible. Accuracy on the helm together with attack speed on the gloves provide bonus DPS. For jewelry I'm using a crystal belt. Crafting +5 movement speed on that one is also an endgame goal, but definitely not required. A diamond ring for the second ring slot, standard crit CI stats, and most important on the amulet, crit multi, flat fizz and percent energy shield. After all, try to cap your resists and find a balance between DPS and energy shield according to your budget. My flask setup contains a series promise for some extra DPS and leech, Lion's Roar, more DPS as well, plus knockback comes in very handy. All the rare flasks ideally are surgeons to increase flask charge generation. I'm using a Stipknight for smoke cloud defensive boost, a Quicksilver for bonus cyclone speed, and a sulfur flask for consecrated ground region, with the removal of bleed and freeze. But as always, you can check out the gear and the passives in my guide compendium, linked in the description below. To come to a conclusion, the Poisoncyclone Assassin offers a viable melee build, clearing endgame content on a very fast pace. Min-maxing the damage over time from Voidheart will melt down even the Shaper in record time. The only downside are the 2 poison immune guardians, which will take longer to kill, but that's of course only in relation to non-immune bosses who melt down like it's nothing. That's it from my side for today. Stay safe and thanks for watching. For more Path of Exile content, feel free to subscribe to my channel where you'll find weekly build guides and trading tips. I hope you guys enjoyed and hope to see you next time.